Welcome to Meet Me in the Penthouse. I am Amy, along here with my sister Molly. We help high-achieving women increase their income, but most importantly, their impact. We are neighbors, sisters, and business partners. We have built 8-figure businesses together, traveled the world together, raised our children together, mentored thousands of men and women together, and it's all because we have a penthouse mindset. We aim for the top, and we show others how to empower themselves to peel back the layers and truly step into their greatness and calling. Welcome to Meet Me in the Penthouse.
Hi there. Welcome to Meet Me in the Penthouse. This is Molly Kroeker, where we help high-achieving women not only make a significant income, but also an impact. And so today we have the woman that has probably made the most impact on both of our lives, my sister Amy and I, would be our mother, Nancy Lunn. And so we always have successful women come on, and we love hearing their stories of how they pivot and how they've made an impact in the world. And so this woman is the reason that I am the way I am. I know it's where I've learned persistence. It's where I've learned my drivenness and my love to compete and work out, maybe we would say. I don't know. That might cut that.
Yeah, I think that sounds familiar.
But we're just excited. A lot of people probably would never have their mother on, but our mom is a little unique. She's pretty hip. She's pretty trendy. And she just got back from London, and she's out to make a huge impact in the world, and she always has. And so I think it's fun just to ask her some questions, because she has, I know, just sitting around my dad's surgery, we had a fun time just kind of even reminiscing about things and growing up. I know you said you're going to get the three of us kids together and you're going to tape our mouths shut and you're just going to talk.
Oh, I don't think I could tape your mouth shut, but yeah, there are days I want to do that because I want to talk. And when you're dealing with you and your sister and I don't know that I would say high maintenance, but getting a word in edgewise sometimes is not easy. So yeah, I'm glad you're featuring me today because I can't wait to see what you're going to ask me. And I hope I can answer everything.
I know. First of all, my mom is nearly 80. She just rolled in from London, and everyone in my Bible study and everyone who knows me, always, they know that you are a woman who spends a lot of time. I mean, you walk nearly 10 miles a day.
Well, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but I do love, if you want to say I walk 10 miles a day, that's fine with me. But the fact of the matter is I love being active, and I think that I am just geared towards taking the best care of myself I can. And I try to look at people that are my age or older. And honestly, I have to share a story that happened just yesterday, which is remarkable as we're talking about as people age and what's important to them. And yesterday it was my incredible opportunity to meet a darling 95-year-old woman at the dog park. And I'm not kidding you, by the time the hour was up, this woman had told me the most incredible stories about her growing up and about her wonderful falling in love with her husband, and even stories about getting the dog she owns right now at 95.
Oh, we thought you were crazy to get a puppy when...
That's right.
Last year. I know, we were not happy. The three of us grown children were not. Sorry.
Yes, and neither was your father. No one thought that getting a dog was a really good idea because at the time, I think I was 78 and your dad was about 82, and everybody was absolutely against getting a new puppy. And honestly, the puppy has been the very best thing one of my better decisions my whole life is getting that dog, because every day when I come home from working out, I see my husband of 60 years, and girls, that is to the same man. I didn't trade him in for two 30-year-olds, believe me. I'd never divorce him, but I've considered murder on occasion. But every day I come home from working out at the Y, I walk in and I see the same picture every day. He is sound asleep in the comfortable chair. Now, this is 11 o'clock in the morning, girls. 11. He's sound asleep on the chair with the dog, sound asleep, belly up. So you know that Bob has been, massaging Gladys's. Oh, get that, by the way, girls. The dog's name is Glad-us. Did you get that? As in Glad-us, Bob and Nancy, Glad-us. Ha ha. I hope you caught that because he didn't think Glad-us was a very good idea. But, okay, back to the story. I see them both sound asleep. And I look at myself and I thought, that's what watching The Price is Right will do. You're exhausted because you want to know if Drew Carey is going to give away the big money at the end of the show, and they're just whipped. So they're both sound asleep, and it's a lovely sight to come home to. Even though I'm dripping wet with sweat and I've worked out, I love coming home to that.
And okay, tell the cute story though about the 95-year-old.
The 95-year-old had the sweetest story.
The dog is so cute.
Yes, the sweetest story about was how, girls, and this is so important, that you let God just work in your life, because honestly, this 95 sweet woman named Charlotte was missing her dog who had just died a few weeks earlier. And she was determined that she was going to go get another dog. And she thought, well, probably the best place to go would be the Humane Society and, try and find a dog that would match her. And as she's approaching the door of the Humane Society, a young man walks up with some kind of animal pushed into a cat carrier. And the cat carrier, as my friend looked inside, she said, I think there's a dog in there. Smush! She couldn't tell anything about the dog. And she looked at the man, and the man said, well, I'm giving my dog up. And she said, what do you mean? Well, he said, I'm a roofer, and my girlfriend left me, and there's no one to take care of the dog, and I don't think it's fair to the dog, so I'm going to relinquish her. And without missing a beat, my friend Charlotte says, I'll take the dog, even though she hadn't even looked inside the pet carrier to see what kind of a dog it was. He said, sounds good. He turns and leaves. She takes the carrier, the cat carrier, by the way, with this dog smush inside of it. And she takes the cat carrier immediately to her veterinarian and says, I've got a dental appointment, so I'll be back in a minute. And you give this critter inside here some shots or whatever I need to do to, get the dog ready to take home. She comes back later, walks into the veterinarian's office, and there is a Jack Russell Terrier running straight forward for her. That is the dog that was inside there. And if you know anything about dogs, Molly, Jack Russell Terriers, high maintenance, they're real active, and they're, they demand a lot of
95.
attention. And she's 95. And now, fast forward a few months, the dog is in love with my friend Charlotte, and Charlotte is in love with, his name is Harry, which I think is kind of cute. And it's just been a romance. And, I'm so grateful I get to hear stories like this. I come home so refreshed and so grateful for humanity and for the time to listen to people. That, I told Bob this morning, I said, I love talking to Charlotte because she's 95 and she has great stories to tell. And
And you have time to listen.
And I have time to listen. And, I noticed right away that she'd gotten her hair cut. Oh. And I'm sure nobody else had probably picked up on that. But I said, oh, Charlotte, your hair is so cute. And she said, well, thank you. I just got it done. And then we're off and running. And there was lots of stories to tumble from her mouth, and I enjoyed every one of them. So, I think the trick to aging well is to just always be interested in other people. Find out what their story is and find out what, how that will add to your story and make you the kind of person you want to be.
Yeah, I was telling people in my Bible study this week that you are the best storyteller. They said, do you think that can be taught?
I don't know. I think
I said it could, but maybe, you're a great storyteller. So,
well, the test is going to happen because I've been asked to speak in front of a large group of women here pretty soon. And I'm thinking, I think all I want to do is tell stories that have made my perspective and life better. And some of them are just really hysterical. And some of them are sad, like the time my dad had to burn I don't think you've heard this story, Molly. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do.
Well, anyway, girls, I am a grown-up thumb sucker. And so I started sucking my thumb when my mother died, and I was 3 years old. And, looking back on it now, I'm sure that was my security, was sucking my thumb. But the awful thing about sucking your thumb is that you always have something that you kind of hold up next to your nose. And for some kids, it's a blanket. You see a lot of little kids, maybe hold a blanket up to their nose. But I had this great big huge pillow with gray and white ticking. And I was still sucking my thumb when I was 16. And so one day I got off the school bus, and my dad was a school bus driver, and I came up the hill. And the very first thing I did when I walked into that lonely house, because there was no mother, there was no cookies being baked, there was no, oh, welcome home, how was school today? I walked into the house to find my pillow. And I couldn't find it. And I thought, what did my dad do with my pillow? And I walked into his bedroom and I found it. He'd hidden it in his makeshift closet, which was a rod over in the corner, pretty desperate.
Primitive. Yeah.
Yeah. And he had stuffed that pillow up above his clothing. And I thought, oh, thank God. Oh, I got the pillow down, went and laid down on the sofa. I think probably turned on American Bandstand. And then it was just pretty routine. I just would suck my thumb and sniff that pillow, and the corner was just black. And my dad walked in the house, and he saw that I had found the pillow. And I thought, oh, gosh, now what? And he didn't say a word. And I was very relieved, and I thought, oh, thank God. The next day, however, I climbed off the bus, and I could smell something burning. And it was my pillow. And he had decided to burn it. And I thought, later as I grew up, I thought, that's just how God is. He gives us a lot of chances to get it right. And then finally he has to smack us upside the head sometimes by burning our pillow. And at 16, I really wasn't ready to break in a new pillow. And I was about to get my driver's license. So it's pretty hard to drive the car and suck your thumb and hold on to a big pillow. But I look back on that and think the courage that Dad had. Yeah, I'm sure he thought, well, what am I going to do? And we didn't have any money, so he couldn't go buy any special ointment to put on my thumb so I would, quit sucking it. He just did the next best thing, set it on fire. And oh my goodness, the anxiety I felt. It was a horrible, horrible time to be 16 anyway. Although media didn't, we had Elvis then, so, it was pretty hard to wiggle to Elvis and be sucking your thumb at the same time. But it also made me appreciate the tough decisions my dad had to make as a single parent, And so, yeah, it's one of those memories you don't talk about very often. But yeah, as you get older,
comes to surface. And I think that's always been something that we appreciate now as what age am I in? As adults, I would say, is knowing that Grandpa raised a 3, 5, and 7-year-old on his own and never remarried.
No.
Lived to be 94.
Yeah.
And that was in the 40s.
Yeah.
When men got remarried quickly.
And that was, Molly, that was also the age before aid to dependent children, Social Security. There was no safety net back when our mother died. There was no government help. You just did the best you could. And for Dad, it was turning to, neighbors and friends. And, he did the best he could under the circumstances. And
yeah, he did.
It's pretty remarkable because this generation, all 6 of his grandkids have graduated from college.
Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable for somebody who only had a 6th grade education himself.
Right. And I think that's something we also talked about is how successful you have been. And what do you...
Well, thank you. I'm not sure I think success is probably measured differently at my age than yours, but I count my success of just having a lot of friends and being friendly, and like this woman Charlotte, and the people that I got to meet in London. You know, when I stepped on they call it the tube over there. It's called the subway in New York City, and in Washington D.C. What's it called? Something else. I can't remember
I can't even remember
yeah.
either.
But, and so they would all be looking at their phones, and, you know, and I would get on the tube, and I'd say, hello. And it almost forced people to say something back to me. And by the time we got off the tube, you know, we were
You had all new friends.
Yes, exactly. It was just an incredible experience. And I saw this one young man get on the tube, and someone gave up their seat immediately for his 75-year-old mother.
Oh.
And so he sat down next to me, and I said, oh, I'm so glad you have your mom here. Thank you for getting, taking care of her like that. And so it was just a wonderful opportunity to notice when people are doing the right thing.
Right.
And complimenting them about it and saying, I saw you. And that meant a lot to me, that you're taking good care of your mom.
Well, that's what we've always learned from you as well, is I think people think that we're just the most positive people ever, but it's just you and Dad have always taught us. You always spoke out to people. I love your shoes. Your hair looks great. I mean, if it truthfully did, you were being honest.
Well, we got so tickled in London. We were in a pub. And
you were in a pub
with,
my mother has had, I believe, your entire nearly 80 years, you've maybe had a half a glass of Prosecco.
Well,
but you were
the teetotaler that I am.
You were in a pub.
Yes, I was in a pub. And so there were two women next to us, and Julie, and I just looked at the gal and said, oh my gosh, you've got cute glasses. 2 hours later, we have exchanged emails, and
now you know where we get it from.
And honestly, Molly, one of them ended up being a policeman at the Buckingham Palace.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. That's exactly what you attract.
Yeah. And so she told us the next day we were going to go to Buckingham Palace, and she said, well, here's where you stand when you go to Buckingham Palace so you can see the changing of the guard. And the other woman, are you ready for this? She was a designer of costumes for plays.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, your love language.
Oh, my love language. So we had an incredible 2 hours. We exchanged information with them, email addresses and stuff. We know them by their first names. And I just thought, I came home from London feeling so good at just those wonderful connections we made about, honoring them. And the Brits, we've decided, are such a happy group. I mean, they're very, very pleased and thank you and letting people cut in line, and I don't think I heard any horn honking or anybody getting upset. And that was a treat.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
And you said costume designer. So my mother, for those of you who don't know, was a speech and drama teacher, and we had so much fun growing up when we were little in those huge makeup drawers at her first school. And it was, gosh, how old was that school? When was it built?
Oh gosh, it was ancient, and it had wonderful windows, so we could see people at the church across the street being buried. I mean, they weren't being buried in the church, but I remember distinctly at
seeing the funeral. Maybe not them physically.
Sometimes we would call off class and all run to the window to see what was happening at the church across the street, because that one day I think the guy that runs the fire hall, or the fire chief, was buried. So, I mean, we really got to see quite a spectacle.
And you had a stage in your room.
Oh, we had a stage in our room.
Super unusual.
Yeah, super unusual. Big velvet curtains.
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah. Maroon.
Oh, they were maroon, and we used it as a dressing room. Like when the kids were...
you would just close the...
Yeah, you would just close the curtain. The kids would run back there and change, and then, if they were going to do something for the rest of the class.
Oh, my gosh,
it was
that's
wonderful.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And so my mom went to college, and I can't even imagine having this confidence, not having a mother, but trying out for...
Importance of being earnest. I don't know where that... I don't
confidence.
know. The confidence about saying, someone said, well, you're not going to try out for a play, are you? And I said, well, of course I am. And they said, wait, if you get a part, you're going to have to stay here on weekends for play practice. And I said, exactly. So
Sounds like a good idea.
yeah, it sounds like a good idea to
and
me.
then you didn't even grow up dancing, and you tried out for
Wagoneers at Kearney State. Again, I thought, well, I can do this. I mean, how hard can this be? So we went into this room and they would show us a dance step. And I thought, well, I think I can do that. I didn't have any dance lessons because, again, Dad had no money.
Yeah.
We didn't ever have birthday parties. We didn't get piano lessons. We didn't get dance. We didn't get any of that stuff. But I guess it doesn't matter.
Although we said, Mom, where would you be if you would have had a mom? And what did you say?
Broadway. Without a doubt, I would have been on Broadway.
And I remember as a little girl saying that you were the next Carol Burnett, for those of you that know Carol Burnett, except my mom chose to have a family. And she's like, oh, that's really sweet that you said that. But truthfully, we grew up loving musicals. We grew up in the theater. We knew how to run the lights. We knew all that stuff. And that was just how we were raised. And then you were always in musicals and plays. And also, we tried out for everything. You kind of passed on your confidence to us.
Well, I remember when you girls were in Trendset. Is that the name of it?
Oh,
what was the name of that?
Trendsetter? Was it called Trendsetter? Was that
I don't
the
know, but
modeling
you
thing
modeled,
did?
yes, at the mall. I just drug you out there and said, come on, girls, put on these ski outfits and pretend you're skiing.
She did do a lot of that, and the night before a race. By the way, I entered you in a race, and I was always thinking, I'm like, gosh, talk about low self-esteem. I was like, I hope I don't get last. I hope my mom doesn't sign me up for this race and I get last. And I never got last. But then it hit me that somebody has to get last. And no one's standing there laughing at the end of the race.
Oh, no. The people I feel sorry for are the people on the streets who couldn't run around the block.
Yeah.
You know, I always thought, well, shoot, if I can do this, you can do this. But I do remember a comeuppance one time when I was just finishing a training run at about, I think we had a mile to go, and I think we were on our 9th mile, and I was ready to be over and done with this. And some child was standing on the curb, and she looked at me and she said, "Are you running?" I thought, doesn't this look like running to you? Obviously not. I felt like I was probably sprinting, but in that child's mind, I'm sure I was not even jogging. But I patted myself on the back because I thought, oh my gosh, I did finish it. And, And the year that I ran the marathon here in Lincoln, I thought, oh, please, dear God, don't let them take the finish line down before I finish. I want to finish this. And we
did.
Yeah, and we got to finish it at
on the track,
yes, which was super exciting. And the finish line was still up, and there were
people there, and it was still daylight.
It was still daylight. And then, of course, you and your sister wanted to go shopping after my body had just been annihilated. And I remember going out to, I think it was the mall there on O Street. I think this was long before.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That was...
And then I would sit and with my body just aching, and you'd say, "Can we get this? Can we buy that?" I thought
it was probably a good time to ask you. You were probably like, yes.
I would have said yes to anything.
Yes. And I think my mom knows this story, but I remember as a little girl, I think I was 9, and the police brought my mom home. Because remember, this is the 70s. Women were not running in the 70s at all. And they brought her home because, of course, rotary phones, right? No cell phones. And so all your running partners, they canceled that day. You're not going to call your house at 5 a.m. because you'd wake everybody up. So no one showed up. So you decided, again, made a decision. You're persistent. You stick to a plan, and away you went. You went and did the miles on your own. And Officer Pete Cordham, who went to our church, he picked you up and said it's unsafe for women to be running in Grand Island, and brought you home. And I remember opening the front door, and and I remember that's how we also, another way we grew up, not just plays and musicals, was races. and coming, and that's what we did on a Saturday.
Oh, I know.
And
I bet
we went
Amy
and-
just hated it. You were pretty good about going, but I think Amy thought, oh, I'd rather take a beating than do this. But Molly, here's one story you may have forgotten. There was when I was out finishing a run one morning by myself, pitch black, a car went past me and then circled around and came back. And, I was much younger, much more desirable. And the guy rolled down his window and said, this was the words to a song back then, if I said you had a beautiful body, would you hold it against me? That was the lyrics to the song. And so he's saying that to me as he's driving along, saying that to me. And I'm probably a half a mile from home yet. I sprinted down alleys. I kept looking for anybody that might have had their porch light on, thinking, where can I get help?
Yeah.
I was really frightened. But yeah.
My gosh.
Yeah. So the words to that song will never be lost on me. Yeah. Isn't that awful?
That's a little freaky weird.
Yeah, it is a little
I thought
freaky.
you were going to tell me it was like, I know you've had scary incidences where it was the paper boy,
Yeah.
You're thinking somebody's chasing you. We've had that too early in our years before cell phones, when we're like, I think someone's chasing us, but I always ran with a group. But it was like, oh, it's the paper boy.
Yeah.
That is out delivering newspapers. So that was always a little
iffy.
But my goodness, I can't believe that I'd never heard that story. See, all the stories that I'm hearing.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my favorites is my mom. Maybe this is how most of you shopped, but we would come home and she'd say, put it all under your bed. Like, put it all under your bed and slowly pull it out one by one. Your dad won't notice. And we drove to Chicago, and Aunt Clairlyn was, driving to Chicago. I know Amy was sleeping in the back, and I was 15.
Yes, and I said, get behind the wheel.
Yeah. And I drove on the interstate to Chicago. Now, keep in mind, I think about our daughter and how many of her friends didn't even get their licenses when they turned 16. And same thing, we let Sophie drive to volleyball practice in Omaha the next day. We're like, well, she's had plenty of practice. And so I know today I think, oh my goodness, what we did. But it was raining and I was pinned in between three semis.
Yes.
Remember?
Yes, that was a scary moment for me too. I tried not to let it on. But
you just stayed calm and you just kept reassuring me. And
you're doing a good job.
Yep.
Doing a good job.
You must have said that for 2 hours. You're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. And I'm sure we had the AM radio blaring. I know we did prior to that. But we rolled into Aunt Clairlyn's house and she said, I have got a treat for you. There is a new woman. Do you remember this?
Well, I remember saying, and I think I'm going to lead into the story, Molly, because we said, well, what are some things we should do while we're in Chicago? And she paused for a second and she said, now this was years ago, girls.
I was 15.
Telling this
I'm
story.
54. So.
Yeah, so this is 40 years ago.
40 years ago.
So my cousin Clairlyn said, well, there's a woman named, I don't know if you've heard of her, but her name is Oprah. And she has this show on here in Chicago. And it's kind of catching on. I don't know. You might want to go see if you could go to that. And of course, we had not heard of Oprah. And we said, oh, no, thank you, Cousin Clairlyn. We'll just...
We just want to go to the Water Tower Mall and shop.
Yeah.
And buy all the Esprit.
Yeah. You wanted to buy all that stuff. And here we had a chance we could say we saw Oprah before she was Oprah.
Yes. Although we did see Oprah back before cell phones. Amy called it No, we must have had a cell phone.
No, she was.
No,
remember, they were at the golf store, and
so
she would call every 15 minutes.
Every
she would
15
call
minutes,
to get tickets. And of course, here we get to Chicago to see Oprah.
And I think this is I was in physical therapy school, so 1995.
Okay, but I was hoping she would interview
25 years ago, maybe.
Okay. I was hoping she would interview somebody so we could really see her skills. And it was Earth, Wind, and Fire.
It was bands of the 70s.
Yes.
Yes.
A favorite Oprah band.
Yes. And so we didn't get to see it. We thought we'd land there. Oh, I guess it was 30 years ago we saw her. We thought we would land on, we were hoping it was Oprah's favorite things. Like,
yes.
What if it's Oprah's favorite things? Because you had to be flexible. She could change the date on you.
Yeah.
You had to be like willing to come when you kind of knew about the time, but she changed the time on us pretty
And
significantly.
remember, they asked people in the audience to dance, and you got up. You got up before I did. I thought, well, if she's going to dance for Oprah, I'm not going to.
I thought this is my
Right.
chance to break out of Nebraska and be on with the backup singers of Earth, Wind, and Fire. And I gave it my all.
Did you think maybe you were auditioning for the girls that dance in the Radio City Music Hall?
Yes, the Rockettes. Yes. I did believe I'd put my dance moves to the test. And I remember you being so disappointed, like, really, this is what we're going to see? And we've come all this way to see Oprah. But
Yes.
it was worth it.
Yes, it
so
was.
we did eventually see her, just not 40 years ago. We saw her about 10 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything always works out
Yep.
in the most miraculous ways. We always say that.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
And so what do you think there that you are incredibly, we always end with this question is obviously our show is called Meet Me in the Penthouse. So what does,
I am in the penthouse, girls. I am in the penthouse.
I was going to say, what does that mean to you?
Well, to me, girls, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Today I stepped out of our little townhouse. Some people call them a condo. Some call them a townhouse. And I think the thing that I really liked is that when you live in one of those little subdivisions with retired people, everybody's yard gets mowed on the same day. So everybody's grass is the same height. And you think, well, I think I've arrived. Everybody's grass is being mowed by the same group. And so everybody's grass is getting the weed eater and all that. And I thought, well, I think I've died and gone to heaven. I just was flabbergasted at the beauty of the trees that were blooming and the grass. I guess when you get old, it doesn't take a lot to just bring a lot of joy to your life. That the grass was so beautiful. So I don't know if that was a good. Ask me that question again. What's it mean?
Okay, but now I'm going to ask you it again, but I'm going to take you back for a second because it just reminded me of something when you said it felt like heaven. You did just have an experience that put you in heaven last week in London.
And that was getting to go to Palm Sunday services at the cathedral, at St. Paul's Cathedral, where Princess Diana got married. And girls or fellows, whoever listens to this podcast, I'm telling you, there were thousands of people there. They had a live donkey. And this woman managed to get us in the third row. I thought, I don't want to miss a thing that's going on here. And it was the most incredible feeling sitting in the oldest cathedral in London, dating way back before the United States was even a country, and getting to sit there and think about how that cathedral was built without power tools and was constructed by laborers that must have chiseled things out of stone with, mallets and chisels. I was just overwhelmed, and I couldn't quit crying. And I'm sure people sitting around me were thinking, why is she so sad? They were tears of joy. And in my hand was a little palm cross, that everyone got when they broke through the barricades to get in the church. And I thought, how lovely that was probably the highlight of my trip.
Yeah, and I remember you said the pipe organ probably sounded like it would in heaven.
I can't imagine heaven sounding any better than how that pipe organ sounded in that cathedral. The acoustics were, reminded me of when you used to listen to Sandy Patty.
Oh,
Amy
and I always laugh we loved that. We went to her concert.
Yeah.
Sing your praise to the Lord.
Yeah.
Come on, everybody.
Yeah.
Stand up and sing one more. Hallelujah. I can't sing. My mom can, but.
Oh, but it was, So I'm just a blessed woman. And the fact that I got to go with my daughter-in-law, we celebrated her 60th birthday and my 80th birthday. And it was what a great way to commemorate those years and a lovely trip together and, coming home with just another attitude of gratitude.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that is what we always ask. So I'll ask you one last time is The podcast is Meet Me in the Penthouse. What does living in the penthouse mean to you?
I think for me personally, living in a penthouse is just one step closer to my heavenly home. Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine what that's going to be like. And so living in the penthouse to me is like taking a step back and saying, God, you've been good to me. You have more than blessed me. Even though I was raised without a mother, and things were really tough growing up, but we stayed the course. And we knew from the get-go who Jesus was. And so I guess living in the penthouse for me is like just one step closer to being able to walk on streets of gold.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. And don't forget, you can find us on www.sistersnextdoor. Join our wait list and be sure to share this podcast and rate and review us on Apple. We love you all. Thank you so much for tuning in today.
Hey guys, we'd love to have you join our wait list for a class of You from the Top. There are going to be incredible women who are making incredible, decisive, clear decisions. The energy is fabulous. The view from the top is fabulous. And there's room for you at the top. Go to sistersnextdoor.com and join our wait list.